Hello and welcome everyone to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Hembar. This is going to be Liam's Leapings number 33, the weekly update for the 1st of April 2023, which is, of course, April Fool's Day. I'm not going to pull any pranks in this, though I am going to be cutting out fish for a poisson d'avril, which I will stick on my family's backs tomorrow. Um, it is the French version of April Fool's, by the way. I learned this in French class several years ago at this point. And I walked in the first April, and my teacher stuck a fish on my back. I was like, "What the heck are you doing?" Um, so yeah, that's basically all the prank is. It's very harmless, but anyways, so it's been a couple weeks. I've been out of town the past 2 Fridays for different events. I was down in Utah last weekend for a writing retreat. Got to see people like Dave and Christopher, and it was fun. I had a good time. I finished a story. The writing retreat lasted a little over a week, actually, but I only made it for like the last, I guess, made it for the end of Friday. I was there Saturday, and then Sunday was like kind of when it ended. So I was there for a little chunk on Sunday as well. So I have read not a ton. I don't want to say I've been extremely busy. I say that almost every time, but I have been really busy, okay? But the first book I finished is one that's digital. It's Magic, Children of the Nameless by Brandon Sanderson. First time I read a Brandon Sanderson book in over 2 years, I believe. It was okay. I say okay, like I normally don't care about my like Goodreads like ratings at all, but I do use them on Goodreads just because the stars mean something, right? Like one is like I didn't like it, and two is like it was okay, and like stuff like that. So I put it 2 stars. It was okay. Brandon, admittedly, doesn't have the best prose. I think that was the bigger problem here as well. Is that like you should be able to have the better prose. Personally, like you should be able to, as a writer, change to some extent how you write. I've read plenty of authors who are able to do that. They're very versatile. Sanderson showed me he wasn't very versatile when I read Children of the Nameless. It was not what it should have been for a tale that should have been rather gothic. It just wasn't really very good. It's like 200 pages, and that's way too long for what the story was as well. And that's short, obviously. So, anyways, and then I read A Merchant in Oria and Other Tales by David Wiley. I finished it. I read like the final 3 stories. Again, this is like almost 3 weeks ago at this point. So, I mean, it's been a minute, but I did finish this. It was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. The next book I finished was actually Calday of the Long Sun, which is wild because I feel like I finished these books forever ago. Book 3 and Book of the Long Sun by Gene Wolfe. I need to start the fourth one soon. It's cool. I actually shared this on Discord earlier today that while reading this, I was walking to school once and I saw an injured raven, like a raven with its wing broken. I was like, wow, it's Oreb. He came out of the book to talk to me. He didn't say anything though. Big sad. And then the other book I read or a couple, let's see. I finished Three Hearts, Three Lions by Paul Anderson, my third Paul Anderson novel. They all are really short. I read The Broken Sword about a year ago, and I read Tau Zero probably about a year before that. This was probably my favorite. I liked it more than Broken Sword, I think. It's very more Cockean, put it that way, which isn't surprising. We know, if you know, Paul Anderson is like more Cox like Tolkien, a lot of authors like basically don't say they'd like idealize Tolkien, right? Moorcock really likes Paul Anderson. Then I also read Night of the Long Knives, a novella by Fritz Leiber, post-apocalyptic. This was really stinking fun. I never know, right? Because I could always go into a Fritz Leiber book and it sucks. But I should have had higher expectations. This was really stinking good, honestly. I like this a lot. Very fun. Can't wait to review that one. But that's just every time I read Fritz Leiber books. So let's see, that's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books so far, and I finished one more, and that is Hidden Figures. I don't have a physical copy of that one either, by Margot Shelley, I believe. And I read this one for a class project actually. So that was the last book I finished. It was good. I enjoyed it. Definitely not what I typically read, but it was fun. It's nice to read a biography sometimes. I like the movie Hidden Figures. This definitely is better than the movie in some ways. Movie's not entirely accurate. But anyways, I also read a good amount of 4 books. Now, I read a little bit in hard reading for my nonfiction reading. I read a little bit of an article. I have not finished it in this. Actually, I have it right here. The Dark Man Journal. I read, which is Journal of Robert E. Howard and Pulp Studies. I have read a little bit of Philip Chase's dissertation. Again, I never finished it. I got it years ago, by the way. If you like William Morris, like I do, then it's pretty good. I read a little bit of that, but not very much. Well, I say that. I've read a lot of nonfiction actually recently, but a lot of it's for school, and I'm not going to mention it to you. But I did read a decent amount of was Residue by Steve Diamond. I realize I have not finished a lot of books. I feel like I should have finished books since it's been 3 weeks. This is really fun. I'm about halfway through. It's YA paranormal. I've read one book by Steve Diamond, which was Servants of War, which is co-written by Larry Correia. I talked to Steve a lot. The middle end of February. He's really cool. I got this book from him. I bought it, but he signed it for me. Very nice, of course. Steve is cool, and I like listening to his podcast sometimes, Writer Dojo. And there's a sequel coming out to the Residue later this year, actually. So I read that. I have not finished it. I've been, like I said, I've been really busy. Really, really busy. It's ridiculous. And then I've also started The Stressor for Regard by Tim Powers. This is really fun. Tim Powers is one of those authors I wanted to read this year for the first time. And then when I was at the writing retreat, and Dave and Christopher basically both said that he is like one of the best authors that is still living. And I'm like, I should read him, I guess. He has a book coming out this year, I believe, that is the main character is it Charlotte Bronte? One of the Bronte sisters. And it's like it has like ghosts and stuff like that. I don't know. It sounds really awesome. So this is also similar, like the main character. Well, you have like Shelley, Keats, Byron in here, and they're dealing with vampires, Lamia, succubus type stuff. And the title of the book, The Stressor for Regard, comes from a Clark Ashton Smith poem, and I think that's insanely awesome. Okay, so I'm a sucker for that, obviously. And there's the epigram is that poem, mentions this line, Stress for Regard. And then the epigraphs are from a bunch of other poets, but some of them are Clark Ashton Smith as well. And they're all poets I think and dig. So I think that's so awesome. And I'm digging it so far. It's really cool. And then I read a little bit of The Wood Beyond the World by, I'm about a third of the way through it, by William Morris. This is his 4th prose romance. I'm really enjoying it. I actually put it on pause to read the last book that I really made good progress on, which is The Way of a Dawn by Philip Chase. My reading has been basically halted with this one when I went for the weekend. I wrote a lot during the weekend, and I was out of town anyways. I don't really get much reading done out of town, but I am a 4th of the way through this, and I am enjoying it. I'm just now having to convince myself to pick it back up because now I'm in a very different headspace. I am enjoying it a lot, actually. Part of my problem is I stopped a lot to take notes because I'm digging all the Anglo-Saxon stuff I'm picking up in it. But Philip's a cool guy. Like I said, I read some of his dissertation as well in these past few weeks. Read more of it a few years ago, I think before I started my channel, if I'm remembering correctly. But yes, that's my main reading. That's my novel reading. I will show you presently the books I got while I cut another fish for Poisson de Rio. I also read a decent amount of short stories. If you remember my last weekly update, several weeks ago at this point again, I had just come out with a short story actually. And that same week I came out with an article, like a review, academic review rather, that's like the quality of the review, for a book called A Book of Blades, a Sword and Sorcery anthology. You can go to my website and read those. They're both linked on my website. But I also, my short story was the first for 5 days of running, what's the word, of running like flash fiction. for their upcoming, it's now released, of course, issue 3 of Windgraph. And so I was the first day, and mine had just come out. So, of course, I read all the other 4. There's Homecoming Gift by Cora Boulaert. I read some of hers before. They're really fun. Passings On by Jeff Hart, which was also fun. Tara Duende's Soothing Song by Ian Martinez. Ian Martinez Kosmeyer was also very fun. And then the last one, The Truth of Their Tunes by Don Vogel. Yeah, they're all very fun, cozy. They're very short. I mean, if you just want a quick read to feel accomplished about something, then go read those. And then I've also read some other short stories. So I read one from Starward Shadows. Let me check. It's The Soul Stories of Known. That's very interesting. I was not 100% sure what was going on in this one. It definitely seemed like it took place in the future at some point, dealing with machines of some sort. Seems to deal with innocence a little bit. Like I got 3 fish. Hopefully that's not super bothersome on the microphone. I'm sorry. But you're here with me participating in April Fools. Congratulations. I also read The Island of Dr. Death and Other Stories. That is the name of the story, by the way, and Other Stories. It's just one story. By Gene Wolfe. I mean, there is stuff going in. Super awesome story, I thought, at least. There are related stories, which I'm supposed to be reading. I have not yet read, but it's like the Doctor of Island Death or something like that, and then I don't know, like the Death of Dr. Island, I think, maybe. I don't know. They're like that, you know what I mean? So yes, it is. I'm looking forward to reading more of that. Gene Wolfe short stories. And then what else did I read? Is that all the short stories? Oh, I read The Hashish Eater by Clark Ashton Smith. Actually, I was talking to someone at work this morning who was from Auburn, which is where Clark Ashton Smith lived most of his life. And so he is sometimes called the Bard of Auburn. And I asked if he had ever heard of Clark Ashton Smith, and he said no. I was like, well, you should remedy that. Don't know if he will, of course. Got the big fish. So, anyways, The Hashish Eater, I mentioned it. I read poetry, you know what I mean? Just about every week, but I mentioned this one just because it's noticeably longer. Yeah, it's pretty long. And then at the writing retreat, I finished 2 stories. I finished a lot of writing. A lot of that was for school. I've written a ridiculous amount of essays the past few weeks, and I still have 4 more essays to write over the next 3 days. Ridiculous. I wrote a column for something. We'll see. I'll let you know more about that if that works out. I need to get that. I wrote it. It's very rough. I'm going to edit that over the next few days. And these other stories I wrote are also, I mean, they're not terrible, right? So I finished one yesterday, and I finished the other one at the writing retreat on Saturday. So I have not edited either. I did a read through of the first one, and just edited right after I finished writing it. And the other one I finished yesterday, I have not edited at all. I'm not sure either of them will be accepted as good stories ever, but I had fun writing both of them. First one is very trippy. It's about my character Arian. The second one is an Edward M. Colville story. We'll see how that goes. Anyways, so no, I will give you no context there. But that's basically it. I'll show you real quick the books I got. It's quite a stack just because it's been so long. I got the first big volume of Berserk. It's a manga. Parental advisory sticker on the front. I've had so many people recommend this. It's ridiculous. My brother mentioned this to me years ago, and then just basically about everyone I trust, whose opinions I trust, likes this. And so someone finally said something, and I was like, it was Christopher actually. He's basically you probably like Berserk, Liam. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll just get it. So, yeah, I got Berserk finally. I also got Ibn Fadlan's Land of Darkness, which is about a Islamic traveler visiting the Rus in the Vikings there, and it actually writes down a first-hand account of a ship burial. Really cool. I have not had a chance to get a copy of it until now, and the same with Njal's Saga, which is one I'm almost embarrassed to say I haven't read yet. I will remedy that. Also got issue 3 of Old Moon. They always reject my stories, but I still like reading theirs. It'd be nicer if I wasn't, but it's cool. No, this cover is really awesome too, I think. This is their first issue where they were 8 cents a word as well, so they have a lot more submissions this time around. It's funny, I always get the same feedback. They're different stories. I've gotten the same feedback from them every time. I was like, well, I'm gonna have to send you guys something else because you obviously don't like those stories. Viking Gale Saga, I think I had finished this last time I did an update. I think. Yeah, so very fun. Review's already out for that one actually, because it was new. And then I got the 3 Book of the Short Sun books. That is, of course, On Blue's Waters, because I'm going to be reading Exodus from the Long Sun soon, In Green's Jungles, and Return to the Whirl. These will be the last reads of the solar cycle. I'm looking forward to it, but it's going to be very sad. But I still have plenty of Gene Wolfe to read besides that. Then I also have this very interesting Siege of the Black Citadel by Chuck Dixon. This is not authorized. If you remember, I read Conan Blooded Serpents late last year, and that is like the new Titan thing. Chuck Dixon, I think, originally has done some like comics for Conan back in the day. This is a novel. I hear it's okay. It's really short. But he says that Conan is in the public domain, at least in Europe or something like that. And so he's okay with writing this, basically. I wouldn't be surprised if this is not up for very long, because I just see a lawsuit coming his way, to be honest. So I bought it. And then I got this cool art book for Innistrad. Speaking of that one book, the first book I finished, Magic Children of the Nameless by Sanderson. This is better because it has a bunch of art and stuff of Innistrad, which is, again, it's kind of like the Ravenloft of Magic, vampires and gothic setting, stuff like that. So I like that stuff. That's cool. I don't want this to go any longer, but that's basically been my last few weeks. Hopefully have more stuff for you next week. Hopefully stuff that's entertaining. I think you'll probably get an extra video this week because I have to do another project. I have to do a ridiculous amount of stuff for this one class. And I'm going to do a review, I think. But that'll come out on Tuesday, which is a day I normally don't post anything. That review will probably be a little different too, because I'll probably see me. So look out for that. I'm not exactly sure 100% yet what I'll be releasing for Wednesday, though. So anyways, this one, Liam Williams, Lights Him. I will catch you next.